Well, good late morning, everyone. Not quite afternoon yet. Very happy to see such a large, full room of folks here. My name is Angela Gonzalez. I'm a professor in the School of Social Transformation, where I'm also the interim director for the Center of Indian Education. I'm really excited to be here today with all of you. One, as a Hopi tribal member, the Southwest obviously is near and dear to my heart, but it's always great in these types of venues that oftentimes there's the absence of our presence of Indigenous people. And so I'm very pleased, that we have such an outstanding panel of folks that aren't only in many ways accomplished scholars in their own right, but really, represent leadership across the community here in the Valley as well as with tribes. This is really important for us to make sure that in some ways, not only do we have a seat at the table, I often think we should actually be at the head of the table. So it's really wonderful to see our three panelists up here to share their wisdom and their insights, and hopefully end with a call for action in terms of what all of we can do. So I just want to kind of jump right into the panel very quickly. The plan is each of the presenters will take 15, 20 minutes or so, and then we'll hold all the questions till the end. So, if there's something really burning, just write it down. We'll make sure that there's time for questions. So this morning we're going to follow the order where we're going to start with Council Member Joseph Manuel from the Gila River Indian Community. It's really wonderful to have him. I understand he's an alumni of Stanford University, so I'm sure it's really nice for him to be here for this. But I think more important, as one of our local tribal communities, it's really also important for him to be here. We also have on our panel Dwight Lamaisva, who's both Hopi as well as from Colorado River, who I was sharing with him. I did my undergraduate work at UC Riverside, where I met him for the first time when we were both much younger and probably both brunettes. But it's really great to see him here. And so I'm glad that he's able to join us and share also his insights. And then rounding out our panel is Trula Brenninger from Native American Connections, which is an organization here in the Valley doing critically important work with Native populations across a broad range of issues. I don't want to share any more details on that because I believe that she will be sharing that in her presentation. So with that, we're just going to go ahead and get started, and we'll start off. I believe they're going to be working from the panel the table up here, although you're welcome to come down. And let's just go ahead and get started. Joseph?
Thank you, Angela. My name is Joseph Manuel Jr. It's an honor to be here today. Thank you. I appreciate the invitation, and Shame Masma. That means how are you all doing in the Autumn language. And how are you doing? I'm happy to be here today. That's the Hopi language. I said I'm happy to be here today, and I'm glad that we could come together in a harmonious way. So welcome to the Phoenix area. This area was inhabited by the Autumn people a long time ago, and the history books will tell you that it was first inhabited by the Hohokam people, right? But we call them the Hugum. And through our oral tradition, it is said that we are Hugum. The current modern-day Autumn people are the Hugum people. It's just the history books might tell you a little bit differently, but that's our oral tradition. So we believe that we are Hugum, and that our ancestors built the complex canal system that was seen throughout the metro area here, diverting the waters from the Salt River nearby and the Gila rivers. So, as mentioned, I am a council member for the Gila River Indian Community. I currently reside in Zacatone, Arizona. I went to Stanford University, got my bachelor's in science, technology, and society with a minor in political science. Upon graduating in 2018, I came back to the tribe, to Gila River, and I applied for the Court of Appeals judge position because Gila River is unique in that on the panel of 3 judges for the Court of Appeals, they leave a position open for a community member to fulfill that position. So just like anything else, I applied for it. There was a panel comprised of the council at that time, and they, for whatever reason, they chose me to head up that position. So I got to serve on the Gila River Court of Appeals for 4 years, and I have since finished up that term last year, and then I moved over to the legislative side of things. So I've seen both the judicial, and I'm learning a lot about the legislative side of things. As mentioned before, I attended Stanford University, but while there, I was also the Stanford American Indian Organization co-chair for a term. So I was very involved with the community out there, the Native community, and I actually met Surabhi, Miss Balachandra over there, and we were in the Native dorm together, which is Muwekma. So very, very good memories there. But in terms of Gila River spans 583 square miles, all the way on the eastern side, bordering Coolidge, Arizona, southern bordering Casa Grande, Arizona, western bordering the city of Maricopa, all the way up to the northern boundaries of Chandler and Ahwatukee, and then all the way to the northwest, the Phoenix metropolitan area, west of South Mountain. We have a little over 23,000 members right now, with about half of those members residing on the reservation. We just had a community member outreach to the urban natives, or urban members as we call them, and that happened in California and the LA area. Most of our members who live off reservation primarily live in the state of California, with a close second of Texas. So we hosted a community member outreach, and it was eye-opening for me because, first of all, I didn't know we had so many community members who lived in California, but also just to hear the different issues that they're facing in the metropolitan area of Los Angeles. Homelessness being one of the primary issues that they are facing, and access to certain amenities like healthcare. That event was hosted by a good organization that is also helping in healthcare. I believe it's called United American Indian Involvement, and they are doing some really good things for Native communities. And from what I understand, the group or the tribe that they host the most are Gila River Indian community members. Additionally, the Gila River Indian community is comprised of two different tribes. One being primarily the Akimerd Autumn. Akimerd means river, Autumn means people. And there is another tribe to the west, primarily, like I said, in the areas bordering the Phoenix metropolitan area on the northwest side, west of South Mountain. They're called the Pipash. They call themselves the Pipash, or you might know them as the Maricopa. They are primarily from the Yuma area or along the Colorado River. I believe in the 1700s to the mid-1850s, they came over from their area and asked to be a part of the tribe, and so we humbly accepted them, and we've been together ever since, living in harmony with each other and helping each other out. So that's why it is called the Gila River Indian Community, because it's more than just one tribe. It's two tribes. So transitioning into issues that kind of affect us today from history in the past, we are called the river people, right? The Akimerd Autumn. And around the late 1800s, for about 40 years, the river was shut off. The faucet was kind of turned off, as you could say, just by dams further upstream along the Gila River and diverting that water to farmlands upstream to non-Indians. That, as you can imagine, that was super devastating to our community because water, especially in a desert, is absolutely crucial to survival. When that got turned off, not only did we lose knowledge of farming techniques, but also our culture as well. And as you can imagine, that push into a survival mentality, it kind of gave rise to other forms of, how would I say it, coping mechanisms, such as alcoholism. You know, when there's little hope, you don't have food, you don't have water, you might turn to other things, right, like alcoholism. So that is still kind of prevalent today, and this all stems back from the water being shut off. But we were fortunate enough in 2004 to have the Arizona Water Rights Settlement Act, which was passed by Congress, that recognized that Gila River has rights to various water sources in Arizona. And that was passed by Congress, and it allocated a set amount of water to the Gila River Indian community each year. So that was monumental for us, because that was a huge step in gaining back a sense of what was originally ours in the first place, but that was taken away from us, and we had no control over that. So 2004 was monumental, and the current governor, Stephen Roe Lewis, his father, Rod Lewis, was absolutely monumental in getting that settlement passed. And the current governor, Stephen Lewis, is continuing in his father's work for protecting our water and getting back rights to the water that is we feel is rightfully ours. And there is a new solar canal project, for example, so along some of the canals in Gila River, where there's going to be solar panels placed along the canal, and that does two things. It helps with water retention, you know, in the desert, especially in the summertime. You think July, August, it gets really hot. Some of the water may, you know, evaporate into the air. The solar panels will help cool to keep the water consolidated in one area, prevent that water loss to the atmosphere, but also help with energy creation in terms of solar panels. So that is a project that was worked with the federal government, and we're able to start on that. And actually, just last night and even today, this morning, I passed by the site where that's being constructed. So it's interesting to see that put into motion. It's like it's a real thing, and it's happening right now. So that's a good thing for us. There's also the Pima Maricopa Irrigation Project, which is constructing canals and pipelines throughout the community to help deliver the water, right, to the farmlands that we have. They will deliver to approximately 146,000 acres of farmlands in the community. And from what I understand, they are nearing completion. It was started back in the 90s, and it is nearing completion. And once it completes, then it'll be turned over to the tribe's Gila River Irrigation Drainage District. So that's exciting for the water. But in terms of other issues that our community is facing, we also are facing issues of encroachment from non-Indians along our borders, and that sometimes leads to desecration of our sacred sites. There are petroglyphs in various places, and we're finding more and more that these petroglyphs are getting defaced, whether by scratching them out or spray paint. You see spray paint mostly. You've seen pictures of it. So we are taking measures to help mitigate that by placing concrete blocks. The goal isn't to keep everyone out by foot. We know it's impossible, but the goal is to try to help get the off-road vehicles out of the the lands of the community because it disturbs the land. And as you know, the land is a living thing with all the microorganisms that are in there, and it takes a long time for it to heal once it has been disturbed by off-road tires and such. So that's one of the things that we're constantly, we have to be vigilant about, protecting our community boundaries. And we understand that people would like to visit the community, so there is a process for that. We have to go before the Natural Resources Standing Committee, which is a subcommittee of the Community Council, and actually I'm on that Natural Resources Standing Committee. And you can request a right of entry permit. We see that a lot of times when people would like to visit the former Japanese internment camp from World War II. There are a couple of those sites on our community. And so former internees or their descendants would like to go and visit that site, and so they go through the process of getting that right of entry permit. Because as you know, due to the Indian Civil Rights Act of 1968, you're not, when you enter a reservation, you're not necessarily guaranteed the full U.S. Bill of Rights once you enter a reservation, because that the Indian Civil Rights Act recognized tribal nations and their sovereignty and their ability to enforce their sovereignty. So there are different stipulations of the Indian Civil Rights Act. Like, for example, you still have the right to free speech and right to assembly, but for things like the Second Amendment, that's not guaranteed on reservation lands. Each tribe is different, so you kind of have to be knowledgeable and do your homework before you visit a tribal reservation, because they're all different. You know, they each have their own laws. But yeah, encroachment is one of the things, and it's interesting because I've heard that we just built a new casino. So Gila River has had 3 casinos, and then we just opened up our 4th casino last summer, and that is located in our District 4, which is on Gilbert Road and Hunt Highway, bordering the Chandler municipality, and it's right along the border. So it's interesting to hear comments from tribal members and non-tribal members who live near that, because I've heard that there's a lot of talk that maybe the tribe is encroaching on the Chandler territories, which is interesting, right? It is a little funny. But one of the things that we can use in order to help solidify our boundaries is to place, you know, it doesn't have to be a casino, but to place places of business, you know, that not only act as economic opportunities for the community, but also to act as a barrier to help mitigate the encroachment issues. I did mention the casinos. We're very proud of them. Through the Gaming Compact in Arizona, the community provides millions of dollars in funding to the state of Arizona every year. And those are, they can be applied for by different municipalities. I've seen everything come through from playground equipment to police equipment. So it just depends. But due to the Gaming Compact, we're obligated to fulfill those requests when they come in. So we're very proud to help not only ourselves in our economic development, but also to help our neighbors, right? We have to have that good relationship with the state of Arizona and the municipalities that surround us. It doesn't do us any good if everyone is in a hostile environment. But real briefly, I know I'm running a little short on time here, but we are also facing, like many other communities, substance abuse, especially in the wake of COVID-19. You know, a lot of people experience cabin fever, and on the reservation that experience may be exacerbated because people are so isolated and live far out in the middle of nowhere, and there's a reason for that. They might have allotted lands out there, so they might have lands that were given to their ancestors and that are rightfully theirs now, and so that's the plot of land that they were given. For some reason, it's in the middle, out in the middle of nowhere, so that's where they have to live. So that kind of isolation took a toll on our membership. We saw rises in substance abuse, like I mentioned, and also mental health issues as a result of that. And so in order to battle the opioid pandemic, our healthcare systems make available distributions of Narcan, single doses, Narcan just in case someone is experiencing an opioid overdose, our community members can have that Narcan on hand to distribute that and to administer that to an individual who may be experiencing an overdose at that time. So that's free from our Gila River Healthcare to our members. Anybody can go in. If you're going to the clinic for a visit, for a checkup, you can get a free can of Narcan. So that's good. And in terms of mental health, we're still trying to look at different ways in order to address the situation. Like I said, stemming all the way back from when the water was shut off, that already created, a state of survival. And instead of focusing on thriving like we did before, we had to focus on survival. And as you can imagine, that takes a tremendous mental health toll. But even from that to today's pandemic, it's only exacerbated a little bit more. So we're on the legislative side of things, we're going to different conventions all across the country to try to get a sense of a solution to some problems. One thing I've been informed about, because it's not my field, I didn't study it, but I've been informed about trauma-informed care, so maybe that's something that we could implement in our Gila River healthcare system. We also need to be diligent about using the federal programs that are available to Indian tribes. From what I understand, the community is a leader in the 105L leases, which are a part of the Indian Self-Determination and Education Assistance Act. And that allows the Department of Interior to negotiate with tribes to reimburse facility costs where programs approved under the Indian Self-Determination and Education Assistance Act, where those programs are being held. So we currently do that in a school, I think it's a middle school and elementary school in the western part of our community. And when Vice President Kamala Harris came to visit the community last year, that's where the event was held. So it was a kind of a dual purpose event to kind of showcase what the community has done with those funds and how we're using them, and also to host the Vice President. I think one of the things that is most important to me, lastly, I'll just say this, one of the things that most important to me is our cultural revitalization and reintegration into our current culture. As you can imagine, living so close to the metropolitan area, sometimes our culture isn't revered as highly as it once was by our current members. So we're taking steps to mitigate those issues. We're currently talking about maybe creating a language department that solely deals with language, because we do have departments that deal with historic preservation and cultural resources. However, we don't have a department that specifically deals with language. And every year, more and more of our native speakers, they pass and they go on to the next world. And so in order to be ahead of the curve, we want to address the situation before it's too late. And that's important to me because the bigger picture is that there are stipulations for being a federally recognized tribe. And one of those is having your language, right? And having a set amount of speakers. So if we lose that, then our recognition as a federally recognized tribe is in jeopardy. And all of the benefits and programs that comes along with that. Because I know that there are tribes all across the country who are not federally recognized, and they are fighting hard to meet those requirements. So not only that, but lastly, it's about who we are. It's about what makes us different. Our language and our culture distinguish us from everyone else. And we want to hold on to that because there are values there that we believe can help change and make the world a better place. Thank you.
I can just push it here. Yeah. Yate, Trula Brenninger. You're probably curious why a full-blood Dene Navajo woman has a German last name. Belonged to my ex-husband. Kept the name. I come from a little northeastern town, Ganado, on the reservation. Grew up there most of my life. I am Navajo woman. I am a Bitterwater, Turuchitni clan, and Hanagani, walk around clan, my paternal side. And then my Nalis, or my paternal grandparents, are Titnajeni, Black Street Tree people. Don't make me laugh. And maternal grandparents are Tkapahe, Water's Edge people. That's what makes me a Navajo woman here before you today. I am going to share with you the work that I do and my connection. I'm the president CEO of Native American Connections. And I am an alumni of ASU. I got my MBA here, and also an alumni of Berkeley, and got my master's in public health there. And went to BYU and studied public health, nutrition, dietetics there in my younger years. And then got the taste of administration and went that route. Been in C-suite positions quite some years in healthcare and behavioral health. Two of our board members are associated with ASU. Chris Sharp, he's with the School of Social Work, and Michelle Hill, she's also on our board of directors. Native American Connections exists for a reason, and some of the history described by Joseph of the assimilation and the generational trauma that Natives experienced. In the history of the federal government's systematic destruction of tribes, introducing laws to relocate people to urban centers and displacing them, which created the loss of language and loss of culture. So urban Indians, there was some discussion earlier about migration because of economic reasons, or they want to go to school, they move to urban centers. So Phoenix and LA is probably one of the largest ones. And here in Phoenix, there's supposed to be like over 90,000 urban Indians living here, the majority being Navajo, because we're so close. So the issues that we face in trying to keep our population healthy, because of the history we have, that's why Native American Connections exists. It's a nonprofit, started in 1972 by a grassroots group, and back then they called themselves Indian Rehab, and they were addressing substance abuse. And today we're probably 29, in 1995 we became Native American Connections, a nonprofit, and we've grown pretty big right now. Initially, we were providing behavioral health service, outpatient, inpatient. We have 2 residential treatment centers, and then found that we needed to address the issues, the social determinants of health, the factors that people are faced with to keep them healthy. And one of the main areas is housing. Of course, education and economics and all those play a factor in keeping people healthy. So we play a role in medical care. We provide substance abuse, outpatient, inpatient, and we also provide housing. We have over 25 properties that are a mix of affordable housing, shelters, a family treatment center, and a men's treatment center, in 2015, we started an agreement with the city of Phoenix to manage the old Indian school boarding school on Still Road, on Indian School. It's called Still Park. It's and we manage the middle building. There's a dining hall and there's a memorial hall, and we made it into a visitor center, like a museum. And we designed it as a place or venue for education. So a lot of groups come and hold their meetings, their trainings. We have a language group coming in soon for 2 weeks of training to be able to teach the correct history for our people. And we had put the word out, and we got like over 300 applications for only 80 slots. So we're hoping to do that every year. So we have that community development arm also to be able to be out there and share the story and the correct story. So I'll go into my slides. One more thing. So Native American Connections is what you call an urban Indian organization, as the federal government recognizes, and we get some federal funds. And there's a system of care for healthcare for natives, and these were a system of care established, and tribes get federal funding to provide healthcare through the treaties that they've agreed to with the federal government. And there's the Indian Health Service under the Public Health Service. There's a hospital here in town, that Phoenix Indian Medical Center, that's still run by the federal government. And then Joseph talked about self-determination. That was an act that was enacted in 78 or 75, I believe, that allowed tribes to contract for health services and be able to dictate how they provide care for their natives. So a lot of tribes have that type of arrangement. And then there's urban Indian health organizations such as us. We became established in urban centers. And I believe there's over 48 centers across Baltimore, LA, here in Phoenix that care for natives who are in urban centers, and we're one of them. So let me go to my slides. So this provides just an overview of what we do. We provide health care, we have housing, and we do some community development. And we have a wonderful track record, and a 50-year track record of providing these services. And we're known for integrating healthcare, being able to, for someone that has a primary medical issue, to be able to treat also their behavioral health, behavioral health, substance abuse, and mental health issues. Oops, sorry. Okay. So our integrated model, recently we got a foundation grant, and we're not able to announce it yet because they're gonna have a big splash here soon, and we're gonna launch our mobile health initiative. And this health initiative is gonna provide mobile behavioral health and primary medical care to our residents. We have over 2,100 residents in all of our 25 properties. And we also, this was in the news already, an expansion of our family transitional housing. We got $5 million from the Bezos Foundation. And we're going to build out in La Mirage a condo unit of 45 units for families to transition. It's called bridge housing, getting them off the street and then housing them and hopefully putting them in permanent housing. Our out-treatment center, these are the numbers that occurred from last year, and we provide trauma-informed, person-centered, evidence-based practices. And what's key to treatment is the wraparound services that we provide our patients and our clients, and also the tradition healing services. And they're native. It's combined, and I think that's evidence-based, meaning that their outcomes are better when you're able to address their cultural needs and be able to meet them at that level. There's also co-occurring disorders that we deal with, And we've had this long-term success in the valley. We don't serve all urban needs. Some of our residential treatment centers serve other tribal members. We have a contract with an Alaskan tribe, Alaskan village, and they send their members here to our residential treatment center. We have two centers, as I mentioned, our Patina Mountain Preserve and our Patina Wellness Center, which serves families and pregnant women and families with children. And some of our dollars recently that we got was to be able to, sometimes health insurance only pays for the mother and the child, and sometimes they may have more children. So we always get money to, people provide money to donate to us to provide care for the whole family unit, including the spouse or the partner. We have sweat lodges on our properties, and we have a wonderful success rate of 85% graduation. And the other services provided is they're able to be outdoors and do yoga and hiking. We have cultural councils on site, and we were instrumental in the valley in addressing being able to house some of the individuals who were impacted by the sober living fraud that happened here in the Maricopa area through the American Indian Health Plan, where fraudulent players were setting up these sober housing and billing for these individuals, but weren't providing treatment. Our families and couples referrals are increasing all the time. And we're in a location now, we just renovated, where the outpatient, inpatient, and medical care are just steps away in one campus. So it lessens the barriers of people accessing care. Here's one of our wonderful stories of a young client who had a heart attack related to substance abuse. And we were able to give him care, and he entered our circle of care and able to get the financial support he needed. And he still continues to participate in aftercare, talking circles, and AA counseling. And he's always willing to talk on our behalf, and that we were able to save his life because of the services that we provide. So let me talk a little bit about our housing. Our youth shelter opened January of 2023, which is a partnership with the city of Surprise. It's a 40-bed facility for youth, ages 18 to 26, and we're having a lot of success with that. Two new development projects that we have in the works is Osborne Point, which is just right a block away from our admin offices. We'll have 48 units. It's in construction right now, and we'll serve seniors that are 55 years and above. And then we have a partnership with the city of Phoenix. We'll have 237 unit affordable housing units downtown. There's two phases, 132 first and 105 next. And it will be owned by the city, but we'll manage the facility. And that's in its final paperwork right now. And then these are two new projects, the Surprise Housing. These are the units that are going to be supported by the Bezos Foundation dollars. Family Traditional, we're purchasing condo units for families, and we're in the process of renovating them. And the La Mirage Housing is in its early stage, and we'll have 45 units there with be able to support 40 families. So one approach to make sure that we're successful is providing really strong case management services and be able to provide client-centered care and focusing on the entire whole body for the individuals, medical care, behavioral health, secure housing. And so our goal is to keep people housed. So when they're in our units, we want to make sure that they have services where they can educate themselves and learn how to pay bills and seek a job, and so they're not back on the street again. And we provide that whole coordination of care. A lot of our dollars come from the city of Phoenix, the county, and also from HUD also. So our permanent supportive housing is the approach, what we call wraparound services. They provide pantries in a facility. They provide clothing. They provide after-school programs for kids. We're always involved and asked to participate, like an event here, to come and share our story. We participate in the Maricopa County Regional Maricopa Association of Governments, MAG, and that's how the HUD dollars are funneled through here in Maricopa County. And we sit on the various boards and also the Race and Equity Collaborative Committees to be able to speak for our population and to be able to advocate and make sure that the data is correct and that there's right representation and that they know about how we care for our Native populations, because we're not mainstream population. And there certainly has to be an understanding of what Native people deal with and to be able to take care of them. This is just a shot of just how our units, we have 1,000, and with our new projects coming online, we'll have almost 1,300. And you see that not a lot of people move out of there. We have a high occupancy rate, so there's always a need to continue to build. And we do that through, lately, a lot of the ARPA funds and stimulus package dollars. And also we do low-income housing tax credits, and so we get outside investors to invest in our projects. Here's a couple more stories about a resident at one of our locations, Stepping Stone. 32 years, at the age of 32, he was out on the street. He wasn't allowed to be at home because of his issues. And so he showed up at NAC, and he was able to get into a house and has never left that place. So people who are in our permanent supportive housing, they can stay there forever if they want, as long as they participate and are in compliance with our rules. And another young lady who'd been homeless for 6 years found a house, and she was very happy and experienced stable housing and a healthy life today. And this is just one story. We have a million stories. So these are, as I'd mentioned earlier, the various support that we give our residents: after-school clubs, food and clothing donations. We have a fund development department, and we have many relationships with private foundations, and we have on our website an opportunity to donate. And we have what we call it our in-house, we call it our affordables. Our affordable housing, they don't have supportive resident services. They're basically just like regular, anyone who goes there, they're a regular tenant within affordable housing. But we try to, when we have extra money, provide supportive housing, and people have access to that. Congress Gallego is a big supporter of our home-based youth center and out in Surprise, and he's come to visit us several times, and he actually held a housing roundtable at our admin offices recently. And here's a young gentleman that he met, and they're both military vets, and and this gentleman was one of our residents, and he went on to boot camp and still keeps in contact with us and tells us how well he's doing out in Chicago and living a healthy life. I wanted to mention one more thing. We had Joseph also mentioned that the urban Indian group that I believe they may have visited his community the other day, the United American Indian Involvement Group from LA. They're the urban Indian organization from LA. They've been to our facility 3 times, and they'll probably be back many more times because they want to be able to replicate our program. And they're very excited. And so we host many different, and always welcome people to come tour our facility. The MRED program here, the Masters in Real Estate Development students come and visit us every year to look at our properties and how we develop them. I think I made it. I saw the sign for 5 minutes. So that's what we do, and I'm very passionate about the work that I do, and the staff. We're mission-based, and people love to come to work with us because they basically come to save lives. I got an email yesterday of actually an incident report of one of our residents who OD'd, and the two case managers jumped in and gave Narcan, and was able, and the first responders came in and they were able to save this individual's lives. So that's a regular occurrence, people trying to get people healthy, but sometimes that's not always the case. But we work every day to do that in this community, and we're very proud of it.
No, I'm from here. This is fine. Obviously, I'm not our chairwoman, Amelia Flores. I'm Dwight Lamias, but I'm going to give you a brief background of our reservation and people at our homeland, I guess. Our reservation was established in 1865. That marker is real important to us because it's a marker for our water rights, okay? We have, our reservation spans from north of Parker, Arizona, almost down to Blythe. So it's a large reservation, 353 square miles of reservation. But that's only in Arizona. We also have another, a lot of land in California also, on the California side. The river runs right through the middle of our reservation, and we have about 113 miles of river shoreline. So that's quite a bit. About 70 square miles in California and 353 square miles in Arizona. And we have plenty of water. The people that live there, we have 4 tribes that live there. The original inhabitants of the Aboriginal territory of the Mojaves who are there. And then, of course, the Chimawavy were there also. They were moved in from the northern part of Parker down to the Colorado River Indian Reservation. Then later on in the 1940s, with a program with the federal government, some other tribes were moved down there, including my family, which is the Hopi families, and also the Navajo families were moved in during the late 40s. So today we have approximately a little less than 5,000 registered members of the Colorado River Indian Reservation. What's real important to us, I guess, is our water rights. Our reservation has been granted under the Arizona-California case, a decree giving us about 662,000 acre-feet of water per year, which is a considerable amount. But that's only in the Arizona side. On the California side, we have close to 57,000 acre-feet of water granted to us every year. That's for us to use. And of course, we have number one priority, and we would like to keep that number one priority. With the climate crisis and with the drought going on at the present time, there's going to be a major shortage of water. But we would like to be a solution part of the solution to the problem. But that's going to be a discussion we're going to have this afternoon, apparently. So I don't want to go into that in too much detail. Our reservation, the first irrigation system that was established on our reservation was done by the Bureau of Indian Affairs as early as 1867, and it kept on growing little by little. It was piecemealed as time went on, and not very well constructed. But the major improvement that was made on our reservation was done in 1942, when the federal government decided to developed some internment camps on our reservation, as Joseph had talked about. During World War II, the Japanese were considered a threat to the security of the country in the West Coast, so they rounded up all the Japanese and moved them to someplace, and that someplace was our reservation. We had 3 huge camps called posting on our reservation. And when the war was over, the Japanese were moving out, and a lot of people, including the entire Arizona delegation, wanted to open up the bottom half of our reservation to homesteads and other things. There was a lot of proposals for that because there was nobody was living in the southern half of the reservation, thousands of acres of land there. And so the federal government said, look, the Colorado River Indian Reservation was established for the tribes of the Colorado River. So therefore they opened it up to other tribes who were inhabiting the lands next to the Colorado River, including the Hopis and the Navajos and the Wallapies, the Supais, and so forth. And so some of these people were moved down there, of course, with their permission. And my family was the one who was moved down there in 1945. The Japanese were still living there. This is in 1945. The Japanese were still living there. And literally, my family moved into one side of the barracks, and the Japanese were living on the other side of the barracks, these big black barracks that were down there. And so that's how we have the Hopis and Navajos getting down there to Poston. We moved into those same camps. And as the Japanese were moving out, we moved into their farms also. We used the same farms that the Japanese used. And in some cases, the federal government had promised us, tools to go into farming. That never materialized, but they were willing to sell us those old tractors and old farm implements that the Japanese used for 4 years. So that's how we got started down there. But that's, getting back to the irrigation system though, that was a big change in the irrigation system. And as time went on, it began to expand. But that irrigation system was old, was dilapidated, and there's a lot of deferred maintenance on that system. One study that we did, we had the federal government, I think it was out of Cal Poly, they did a study, they said it would take as much as $300 million to bring that up to par, to whatever level it was and when it was first developed. But yes, that's the irrigation system that we operate under right now. And if we want some efficiency, we're going to have to spend a few dollars to getting that done. On our reservation, we have, I think, about 18, maybe 22 different enterprises, including a sand and rock operation. We have plenty of sand, plenty of rock. We have plenty of that we could make it a major industry there. But right now, we're looking for funding to take care of that. We also have our enterprises along the river. We have resorts along the river that we would like to develop further, and so forth. In terms of the irrigation district, going back to that, we have about 232 miles of laterals and canals on our reservation. We have most of it is unearthed, unlined rather, earth canals, at least 150 miles of that. And if you have dirt ditches, you're going to lose a lot of water because of seepage. And so we're dealing with that. Our efficiency, we take 100 gallons, 100 acre feet of water out of the river, and we can, only about 50 of it is actually used. That's our consumptive use. Our efficiency is about 54%, 53%. That's what was measured, but as a civil engineer, I think that it's a lot less than that. I think it's probably about 48 or 47% efficiency. Now, if that efficiency can be raised to, say, 80% or even 90%, we could save a tremendous amount of water. The savings of that water could be made available to other people, other tribes, for example, that are in desperate need for water, or maybe other irrigation districts that are in need of water. And at the same time, we could continue farming. We are farmers. We are farmers first, and we will probably always be farmers. And we want to continue farming. But with the savings made by conservation efforts, we could make some of that water available. I need to mention the fact that on January 3rd, 2022, the United States government passed what was called the CRIT Water Resiliency Act, S3308. The Senate passed this Resiliency Act 98-1. 98, that's almost unheard of in the United States Senate. And the House passed this same bill 485-7. That doesn't happen too often. Now, what this Resiliency Act is going to do for us is it gives us the opportunity to determine who we might market our water to. And we don't have to go to the federal government. Right now, the federal government makes that determination. Just like Arizona had their sovereignty limited by the United States, the Constitution, the Commerce Act, where it said that the United States government, or Congress rather, could regulate commerce between foreign countries in the United States and regulate commerce between the states. It also said that same Commerce Clause says it will regulate commerce between the tribes. Okay, thank you. Well, that Resiliency Act, I think, could, even though it was passed by Congress, could not come into fruition until 3 people signed it: the Colorado River Tribes, the state of Arizona, and the Bureau of Reclamation. Well, this law was passed over almost a year and a half ago. It's finally, we hope, going to be signed next month. And so that will open the doors for us. Then we can help determine, it'll give us an option to help determine who we can sell market our water to. It'll give us an opportunity to determine the fair market value of that water also. So it's going to give us a little bit more, it'll expand our sovereignty a little bit more by giving us that opportunity. Let's see, right now our diversion can be as much as 662,000 acre feet per year. That's what we could have, but because we are not able to develop our lands, we are only using about 510 acre feet of water, 1,000 acre feet of water per year. So what we're trying to do is trying to develop more land. We're trying to develop a habitat. The main point I wanted to make here before I get shut off here is that we want to save the river. We're not just a benevolent nation. We're trying to help other countries and other tribes and other water districts. But by cooperating, we're all in this together. And what we would like to do is save the river. Not just, we have a spiritual and cultural connection to the river. We all do. I'm Water Clan, for example, and the Mojaves and the Chemehuevis and all have a close tie to the river, and as do the Navajos on our reservation. And so we're trying to save the river, and by doing so, we are going to try to cooperate with other people of the basin so we can cooperate with each other and maybe keep that river flowing. Thank you.
Thank you all so much for your comments. As a health researcher, I love the fact that we started with kind of like the importance of the water and what happens when, the river was dammed, because as a health researcher, we often talk about upstream. And I think that is such an excellent example of what happens when I think about the history of colonialism and its enduring impact on Indigenous people. So kind of starting with that example, it really kind of helps to illustrate some of the challenges I think that Native people, not just here in Arizona, but worldwide, globally, are facing through the encroachment of colonization. And so I appreciate these comments, but I also appreciate the fact that as I was listening to our presenters, it's also forward-facing. I think that tribes and tribal members, communities are really looking to develop answers in collaboration, in partnership, but also in a way that helps them design futures of their own making. So with that, I just want to open it up to the audience. I have a few questions, but I'm hoping that we have, I feel like can you all hear me? I don't know if I need to, okay, all right. I want to open it up to the audience to see if you all have questions for our panelists today. And I don't know if I'm supposed to have a mic. Would you? Okay, right here in the front.
I have a question about the Resiliency Act. You said that it required 3 signatures, and it's been a year and a half. Does it normally take that long, and who hasn't yet signed?
No one has signed it yet, but it's planned to be signed next month. Now, we've always been this close. Arizona needs to sign it. The Bureau of Reclamation has to sign it. Of course, CRIT is ready to sign any time, any place. We're the other third signature that would go on that agreement. So according to the law, this agreement has to be signed first before it can be implemented.
And what is it why is it taking so long?
They blame it on bureaucracy, but I think it's more politics than bureaucracy.
Thank you.
Other questions? Up here in the front?
I had a question. My question is actually for Trula. Sitna Jenny Nishlin Nakaidana Abashichin, Swedichini Dashiche, Bilagana Dashinale. I actually live in an NIC property at Catherine Arms downtown, and I love all of the support and the services that I receive, but I'm really curious because when I look around at my neighbors, a lot of them are not native and they're also elders. I saw that you had plans for a homeless sort of elder property, but I was curious if you had any other solutions to making sure that urban natives and urban youth have access to those high occupancy apartments as well.
Yeah, we're a fair housing entity because we receive HUD funding, so we can't discriminate. But half of our tenants or residents in our properties are native. So we do have a new unit coming up, Osborne Point, right on 3rd Street and Osborne, that will house natives 55 plus years. So it does take a while to the begin to end. It depends on our partners. Could take up to 3 years from the concept to opening our doors. But we're always looking for opportunity. We also try to don't overexpose ourselves and get too many things happening at once. Right now we have 5 projects in the works right now. And it'd be nice if we stabilize and grow a little slower, but some of the cities and counties are still spending down their ARPA dollars. So we took advantage of the opportunity to do some more development. But yes, I agree with you. We do have a need in all populations that need to be housed. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. There was a question up here.
You mentioned that the tribe, has an opportunity to possibly sell water and develop its agriculture more. But I was wondering, because early in your remarks you suggested that it was hard to get loans. So one, if you had an ideal economic development plan, what other sectors of economic development would you like to see developed? And secondly, what is it that makes it difficult? I know from some studies of other states and tribes in other states, the patchwork of land is a problem, and it's hard to sort of raise capital. But what is it that's, A, what do you want to do, and B, why is it so hard to, what are the things that are getting in the way of economic development outside of the agriculture and the water?
You know what, the tribes, we don't own the irrigation system. The entire irrigation system is owned and operated by the Bureau of Indian Affairs. And it's just in disrepair. And the efficiency of the irrigation district is very poor. And not much money is being given to the Bureau of Indian Affairs to repair that system. And so it limits what we can do, how much water can be delivered. Plus the fact that, we don't want to jeopardize our sovereignty, so that makes it a little bit more difficult to get loans. We're trying for grants, and we're trying to develop a lot of the stuff on our own. But the thing that we're facing most of all right now is a poor use of the water that we have. We use flood irrigation, for example, which is probably the worst form of, worst efficient use of irrigation water. We have some main canals which are dirt, and they're running through from very sandy areas. We'd like to put them into pipes where we could decrease the seepage and also the evaporation. The summers are getting hotter, and we have a lot more evaporation. The winds are stronger as time goes on. I've noticed that for the past few years. So that increases the evaporation rate, things like that, see. We'd like to, areas like our sand and gravel, we'd like to expand on that. And we're working on financing of that right now. But one of the main problems that we have right now is housing. And we can't get loans for a housing program because the tribe owns the land. If you build a house on the land, you can't, it's going to be very difficult to sell it unless you sell it to another tribal member. And so it limits the housing that we have. A lot of the professionals that we bring in that want to do some work for us, they can't find housing. They have to live in Havasu and drive every day from Havasu down to Parker. So those are just some of the problems that we have. I don't know, does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, those were very interesting points. The Oklahoma tribes have done a lot with green energy, with wind. I would think with the not the Biden money, I should say. Sorry. But anyway, with the Biden money trying to push the green energy, does any of that filter down into possible developments with respect to either solar or wind that would actually take advantage of the fact that you have a lot of heat?
We're in the middle of that right now with solar energy. We have a lot of land that's up on the mesa that we are not using for agriculture. We would like to develop our solar plants there. But also, another thing that we're working on that I've been studying, like I said, as a civil engineer, the possibility of pumping some of our drain water up there and let it filter naturally through the aquifer there. But we'd like to use some of that water that we have and use it, recycle it maybe 3 times, use it several different times. But that's going to be a long process. We're looking into some of these things to save the water and recycle the water. If the Israelis could do it, I don't know why we can't.
Another question in the back?
Thank you. This is for Joseph. you mentioned, the importance of language. So Mike, I'm just curious, Arizona has a lot of English-only laws. Are those having a negative effect or any effect on your ability to continue, the language and teaching the language in schools and other places?
Hello. Oh, thank you. I think it does have a detrimental impact on our language revitalization processes, especially when you think about trying to get programs approved for your foreign language requirement in Arizona schools. I believe Casa Grande Union High School has a foreign language set aside for the O'odham language. But from my understanding, it's very difficult in order to get that accreditization. Sorry. So a lot of the things that we have to do are going to have to come from within internally, and that's why I suggested that one of the things we're possibly looking at is creating a department that is solely responsible for the language and the revitalization of it. But one of the things that I also suggested was that maybe we could have, and this is just coming from me personally, maybe we could have a system where we have our own schools on the reservation. We could have those schools have a foreign language accredited program where we could teach our language, because right now there isn't that. There isn't a program like that where they can get certified. We do teach the language and culture in the schools as much as we can, but due to the requirements of having to teach other subject areas like math and history, all the other subjects, we only get a certain allotted amount of time per student per week that we can focus on the different languages and the different cultures. So it is an uphill battle, but it's very, like I said, it's very important to us because it deals with our very existence as a tribe. So, but yes, to answer your question, it does have a detrimental impact on it.
Thank you. Question up here in the front. I don't know where the person, and there's one in the back as well.
It sounds like you have like 100,000 acre feet that you could sell, because you're getting 600 and using 500. When you sell it, do you just leave it in the river? Do you have to deliver it somehow? And who gets the money? Does it go into the community to do these other projects, or do you allocate it? Anyway, that's the question.
The proper term, according to attorneys, is leasing the water. Right now, in the past, we have made up to over a 3-year period, we made over 200,000 acre feet of water available, but we fallowed our ground and made that available. But what happens with that is that the water remains in Lake Mead. And by remaining in Lake Mead, it keeps the elevation of Lake Mead up. That way, CAP can continue taking their water out of the river. So it benefits the citizens of Phoenix and whoever CAP might be serving. It benefits them. But we do this through the Bureau of Reclamation, because they are, as presently anyway, they are the only ones we can lease our water to. Remember I mentioned the Commerce Clause. The federal government controls the interaction between the tribes and the people off the reservation. So that's the only way that could happen. We put our water into Lake Mead to keep the water level up, so that way CAP can continue taking water from the river. Now, after this agreement is signed, now all that will change. We could make water available to other irrigation districts, for example, we can negotiate with them, and we can also participate in negotiation of a fair market value of that water. We can do that. But right now, the details of that have not been worked out yet. We will go into discussions with them, and then we'll work out something. For example, if Phoenix wanted to get some water from us, we could put it, we could deliver, we could have the cap deliver it to Phoenix. That might be a possibility. I don't know. Our Tucson or other tribes might be able to work something like that out. But right now, the details have not been ironed out yet.
But who gets the money when you sell? I assume you get paid for this by Phoenix.
Me? No. No.
Can I be your partner?
The tribe, the Colorado River Indian tribes, will get that. But we're going to only market the water if we can use those funds to develop conservation systems. Sprinklers instead of flood, pipes instead of dirt ditches and so forth. Recycle some of that water and reuse it again. That's what we would use the water for. That's the only reason why we would market our water.
Good.
Question in the back there?
I've noticed that there's not been a great deal of work on education other than the white image of education top down. The only way education is going to work is from the grassroots up. Could each of you describe what is being done at that level for kids who are 3 through 18?
Okay. If I can answer what I think you're asking. Right now, currently, what the Gila River does is we have a certain amount of, we try to increase the amount of time that the kids get exposed to the languages as well as cultural education. And it's really up to each individual school in order to develop their own curriculum regarding those topics. One thing that has been discussed is maybe we should standardize everything, but then again, you run into the issues of when it comes to language specifically, oh, well, what's the standardized language that we should use? Because there are different dialects in different villages. And Gila River has 7 districts, and within those districts, there might be several villages. So every time this issue comes up, then we get into the discussion of, well, whose dialect should be the standard, and then there are other issues of when it comes to culture, sometimes stories can only be told in the wintertime. With my culture, and I think a lot of other cultures as well, especially Hopi culture. So there are certain things that we have to be able to address in not only the, like you said, the top-down ways, but also culturally, like you said, from the bottom up. There are certain rules that we have to abide by as well, like, for example, only telling the stories in the wintertime. That's something that we are currently addressing because there is no set standard. Even when I came back from school, when I graduated, I went to seek out any kind of class that I could find about the language, just to learn, because I'm always willing to learn, especially about my culture, and unfortunately I couldn't find any at the time. They would pop up sporadically, maybe for a month here, a month there, but then they would die. So one thing that I took it upon myself to do, just a quick side note, is that I had to, the current state of it is, if you are interested in learning more outside of the classroom, you have to go and seek out your elders. And so that's what I did. I went to the Caring House where a lot of the elders are, and I went to to go to their events, specifically the cultural and traditional events, and I learned a lot, especially the history behind why each district has its name. For example, my district is called Gu Ki. Ki is house. Gu is big. It's a big house. And if you know, Casa Grande is named Casa Grande, the big house, because of Gu Ki. And I just learned different little pieces of information that I could from those elders. Of course, COVID-19 threw a monkey wrench in that, but that's the current state of affairs, at least on the Gila River Indian Reservation.
We have one right here, and I think a couple back there. Right. Gentleman in the blue blazer.
Thank you. I have two questions. The first is for Joseph, and the second is for Joseph and Trula. The first question relates to your service as a member of the Court of Appeals. Was that a tribal court? And if so, what sort of challenges do you face in terms of funding, resources, defense lawyers, things like that? And then the second question for both of you is, how serious is fentanyl a problem in your community, and is it the most serious problem?
Okay, thank you for that question. So the Gila River Court of Appeals, it is a tribal court of appeals, and of course that's separate from from all the actual trial courts. Is not in the big tree of hierarchy. It's its own separate thing. So there's communication with the chief judge, but we're kind of separate from everyone else. At this time, the Court of Appeals is part-time. So I think before the pandemic hit, there was maybe on average maximum 50 cases a year. But of course, when the pandemic hit, that case load dropped significantly. But we are currently trying to fill some positions right now. So just a quick shout out right there. If you know anybody, we're looking for Court of Appeals members. But yeah.
Were those civil, criminal, and administrative matters, or what kind of matters were they?
Yes, all the matters, any appeals that came from the lower courts in the tribe specifically. Yes. Your second question was about the opioid epidemic. What is your question asking? Can you give me your question again?
How
I'm sorry.
serious is fentanyl a problem in your community, and is it the number one problem?
Yes. It is definitely serious. We actually went to, meaning some of the council members actually went to the National Opioid, I forget exactly what it was, but it was the first Native American convening to address opioid matters, and that was held in Washington last year. So it is a problem, and we do have, it's enough of a problem in order for our healthcare to make it available for, like I said, for anybody to come in and get Narcan, and we have Narcan distributions regularly. And is it the number one problem? I think it's on the rise, but I think compared to other substances such as alcohol, it hasn't quite reached those numbers yet, but it is on the rise. So I know the scary thing about fentanyl is that only a tiny bit is fatal, right? And even in some instances, if you get it on your skin, if it's in powder form, and it reacts with the oils or the sweat from your pores, that can be fatal. So that's the scary thing about fentanyl. So it's a little different than alcoholism. I think since alcoholism has been such a long-standing negative aspect that has been around for decades, I think just because of that, and the fact that opioids have, at least especially fentanyl is fairly new. I think those numbers, that's why there's the disparity in numbers. Maybe alcoholism is a little bit higher than fentanyl, but it is definitely a rising issue.
I think the issue is always accessibility. Fentanyl's very cheap, and so and also alcohol it's very serious, And alcohol is also very serious, and it's very accessible in any culture, any population. So, and then the fentanyl can be laced with other products, and people don't know that they're consuming it. So it is a very serious problem in rural and urban centers across the nation.
I think we have time for maybe one or two more questions. I think there's a question. Oh, right there. Well, I got you in the brown blazer. You'll be next.
Hi, I have a question to Dwight. So one of the major problem for Arizona water Colorado River water settlement is not only the allocation, but also the mechanisms or capabilities access to the tribes. Is there any solution on that, or like any funding opportunities, update on any funding opportunities? Looks like probably the Resilience Act will help a little bit of it, but that's still not finalized yet since it's not signed completely. So do you have any updates or like solution on that? Thank you.
Would you repeat the question again?
Yes, sure. So I'm saying that one of the major problems for the Colorado River water settlement is not only the allocation, but also the mechanisms or capabilities access to the tribal communities. So my question is there any update on that, like funding opportunities or mechanisms that are provided to the tribal communities, other than the Resiliency Act, which is not finalized yet?
I'm assuming you're talking about the water?
Yes.
Okay. There's a lot of stuff we're working on, and we're trying to find funding for some of these programs, but a lot of it takes a lot of planning and engineering work to make sure that we are on the right track. And so that's what we're working on right now, but it's still a major problem because, for example, like I mentioned earlier, we did several studies, and one of the studies was to determine what would it take to bring our irrigation district, owned by the Bureau of Indian Affairs, what would it take, how much would it take to bring that up to par, to where it would be a lot more efficient? And the study showed that it would cost as much as $300 million to replace all the gates and everything else that's on the thing. And also the design was, it was all put together piecemeal. And so to have a better design for the irrigation district would be about $300 million. So that's something our tribe can't, we just can't afford that. So we're hoping that the Bureau of Indian Affairs will find some money someplace to get that to develop. We really would like to use our full allocation, where we haven't done that yet. But we need to develop more land. We have plenty of land that needs to be developed, and it's been on the books these plans have been on the books for quite a while. Just a matter of getting the water to the land so we can develop them, both in Arizona and in California. We're really concerned about developing our California lands, not just for resorts, but also for farming. There's plenty of good farmland that we have there on the California side that could be developed. I don't know, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does, but my question is, how will tribes get the funding? Because to update those mechanisms, to access their portion of water, they need funding.
Yes. Well, see, we would like to find the funding and get our irrigation district up to par because the deferred maintenance has been deferred too long for, 50, maybe, anyway, a long time. But we don't own the district. We don't own the canals. We don't own that. It doesn't make sense for us to put all of our money into that, and we don't own it, even though it's a delivery system for us. But at the same time, we would like to it'd be good if we could take possession of that. But I don't know if the tribe wants to do that without having some kind of funding where we can rebuild everything develop that irrigation district. That's one of the biggest stumbling blocks that we have right now.
Thank you.
One final question, this gentleman at the, there you go.
Thank you. My question is for Trula. And Trula, it sounds like your organization is doing a fabulous job of helping people and also accessing available programs to bring to bear. With all the prevalence of substance and alcohol abuse, are you seeing a huge number of, or a big need for foster care programs? Children can be impacted because of parents' substance problems. And does your Native Connections have programs to help children in need?
We have a residential treatment center. We have also provide outpatient services. And our intent is always to keep families together. If one of the parents is struggling, we try to treat the whole family in a unit at our Family Wellness Center, Patina Wellness Center. And then we have a separate men's facility, only men get treatment there. And I think there is a law called ICWA, Indian Child Welfare Act, that supports Native members for children to remain within their community, either with a parent or a relative. And we don't get involved in terms of any participation in that initiative or that law, that act. Our purpose is always for treatment, just to get people healthy, and if there's issues of why children are displaced, removed from families, we help with the parental unit and how they can heal, so they can keep the child in the home. But we don't get involved any other than that. But for my tribe, Navajo, we have a huge number of members, and yes, there are issues with that. I can't tell you members, I can't tell you numbers, but the law protects children, Native children, that they remain within communities remain with family members or relatives.
Great, thank you. And with that, we're out of time, but thank you so much to our panelists for their insights this morning.